This is a place.
This is the place?
This is a place.
Every Wednesday, two friends set out on a journey to find unique places they want to talk about. With two microphones and one goal: to entertain you. Join us on this week's episode of This is a Place podcast.
Wow. Hope you enjoyed that alternate intro. My name is Brandon, and I'm joined by a man who single-handedly toppled MoviePass, Nate.
I probably did, to be honest with you, with how many movies we watch on that pass. Just never made any financial sense to me or business sense to me how they even afforded to do that pass to begin with.
I bet they would be thriving right now, though,
If they were still charging people their monthly fee and not...
not having to pay for people's tickets.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I know, which is interesting because my gym, which was 24-hour fitness, they were charging me for the first month or two of this quarantine, and then they went out of business. Interesting. So you don't know. Maybe MoviePass wouldn't have survived. But I sure did enjoy MoviePass while it lasted.
It'll be interesting to see if anything like that comes again once all this is all settled down.
Well, Regal Theaters has something. I think all the theaters came up with something, but Regal has the most like MoviePass deal, where it's, instead of like $10 a month, I think it's $18 a month, something like that. You can see unlimited movies at the Regal Theaters. So we hopped on that bandwagon, but they are unfortunately closed right now. They were supposed to open up July 10th, but looking at their website recently, it looks like they're not opening till the end of July. But when they reopen, I'll be back there watching my movies at Regal with my Regal Movie Pass.
I'm interested to see, even when the theaters open, what movies they're going to have, because so many of them have just been released online.
That's true. But did you know, like, a cow's favorite movie is coming out?
Which one's that?
Mulan. Mulan.
No. Mulan.
That's supposed to be, they're supposed to be releasing that in theaters. I believe there's some Russell Crowe movie that's supposed to be coming out one of the first weekends they open. And then I'm pretty sure Bill and Ted's is planning to be released in theaters. So I think the movies that are supposed to be coming out in the next month or so are going to hold off and see if they can't be released into the movie theaters.
Well, the one I was looking forward to was the Jungle Cruise movie, but they decided to just push that until the next summer, so gonna have to wait a while for that one.
Yeah, and there's been, I think we've talked about this before on previous podcasts, but yeah, a lot of these movies that we thought were coming out in 2020 have now been pushed back to 2021. So it'll be interesting to see, because obviously movie production has halted, right? In a lot of shows. So are we going to have like a 6 months or 9 months from now, are we going to have just like a gap of nothing new coming out because there was nothing made for so long?
Yeah, you're probably right. That's why they have to push all these until next year, because there's not going to be the opportunity to make movies for next year. Well, we're talking a lot about movies, and I guess there's a good reason why, as that's our episode topic today.
Movies?
Yeah. Isn't that fitting for now? All the movies we've been watching lately?
All the movies we've been watching
in theaters?
Home lately, correct. But at theaters, no.
Well, the place we're talking about today doesn't matter. Even if movie theaters were open, we couldn't go visit anyway. So we're talking about the Showstar Cinemas 6. And that is one of 4 names it's been known over the last 30-ish years?
40.
40? Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Well, 39. October 1980. I'm just barely older than this theater would be if it were still around.
What I always knew it as, just because of geographical reasons, was the Dollar Theater. But this was located at 5400 South and kind of just there off of Redwood, where now Texas Roadhouse sits.
Yeah, the new Texas Roadhouse.
So really, the Texas Roadhouse is what followed the movie theater. Once it closed down, they demolished it. They put Texas Roadhouse in its place.
Good trade?
I don't know. Guess we'll see.
It's a tough one because the Texas Roadhouse was already across the street, right, on 54th. And the
Mhm.
new one they built is identical to the one they had across the street. So in theory, if we lost, right, because we lost the movie theater. But the only positive, if you do go to Texas Roadhouse, is that the parking across the street, the old one, was a nightmare compared to
True.
what you can. So that's the only pro to having to move across the street. But unfortunately, we lost the discount movie theater in the process. What reviews do you got for us? Was the Google around before they closed?
It was. So I've got 3 to share with you. So Richard Scott said, "This place is dirty, really dirty. Like need to go home, shower, and do laundry kind of dirty. Ticket prices are okay, but concession prices are just as expensive as top tier theaters. Won't be coming back ever."
Okay, so you have to go watch a movie, but no, you're going home to take a shower.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one is from Donovan. This is a mid-level review. He said it's not one of the new big movie houses, but it's a nice place to have a kids' party. Fun fact, this is where I met my most aggressive stalker, my wife.
You met
I
his
never really
wife
thought of
at the theater.
that before. Your wife is your stalker, but makes sense.
I wonder if, since they met there and it's not around anymore, if his wife makes them go to Texas Roadhouse a lot to remember where they first met.
Yeah, that's what they go for their anniversary now.
Yep. Free
They can
peanut.
just set their phone up on the table and watch a movie while they eat. So they still get that same experience.
That's a good idea.
All right, I got one more from my namesake, Brandon. He says, "Give it 4 stars. Awesome theater. Popcorn is fresh. Drinks are crisp. And the movies are new. Beat spending $100 date night. Not the same quality as the big boys, but it is way better than the dollar theaters."
I think that basically sums it up for me. If I were to write a review, be similar to that. It's one of those places that's not as great as the new movie theaters, but when you're paying half the price, kind of makes up for the fact that you're not watching on a new theater screen, right?
Yeah, and you can spend a lot of money going to a movie, but with places like, well, when this was around, you could still get the same kind of movie experience, but not have to fork over as much money. And it seems like the concession prices weren't quite as bad either.
They were pretty much on par to any other movie theater. And I think that's probably in their latter days of their existence, that's where they were making a lot of their money, was hopefully in the concessions. They had really cheap ticket prices for new run movies before they closed. And I believe Mondays it was even cheaper than normal. It was like $3, I believe, for a movie. So we would take our kids to, when the new movies would come out that kids wanted to see, we'd take them over there on Monday nights, and for $15, the whole family got to watch a movie, where I think $15 at the regular movie theater might buy you
It's like one or two tickets.
one or two tickets, depending on the time of day you go, right? So,
Yeah.
and they also weren't too bad during the weekday. I think matinees were like $4, and then maybe the nighttime ticket was $5 or $6. So it wasn't bad, but Mondays were definitely the day to go over there to watch a new run movie for only $3.
Yeah, and I guess I hadn't been there in recent years, but I always thought it was still. I thought of it still as a dollar movie, but let's talk about how it kind of evolved over the years. Go back from how different it was when it started back in 1980.
Yeah, because it wasn't always obviously a discount theater.
Right.
At one point, it was the newest and hippest thing in town, right? And wasn't it
Mhm.
also when it first opened, like one of the first kind of it had like the most screens in
So
Utah?
it was the first sixplex in Utah. So this was a learning for me because I didn't realize that the six meant plex or what that meant when you say multiplex. So when I was reading about Showstar Cinema 6, I was wondering where the other 1 through 5 were located.
Oh, I gotcha. You thought it was the number of the location.
Yeah, but that actually means that's how many screens they have. So, first one of that size in Utah, which is crazy to think about how much bigger theaters are these days. But back in 1980, sixplex was a big deal.
Yeah, I remember when I was just a kid that I grew up in Sandy, that the Sandy's movie 9 uh, was built, and having 9 theater screens was a pretty big deal. But now, movie theater like that's relatively small nowadays, right?
Now they don't even count. They just say there's like multiple screens. Just know that there's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be going to Cinemark and they're like, it's a 28 plex.
Yeah, I
I
would say
don't,
most of it, yeah, have at least 15 plus screens in any theater nowadays, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, it opened on, it had a gala invitation only on October 6, 1980, and it was put in by Ted Mann, and this was one of 300 other theaters he had throughout the Utah, Idaho area. So it was a big deal this day, and he brought his wife, Rhonda, who was a Utah native, as well with him.
Oh, makes sense why he opened up here, right? Because he's not from Utah, right?
No, I think he was from North Dakota, but because of his wife, they had that tie-in. I want to talk a little bit about Rhonda, though, if that's okay.
Help me,
This
Rhonda.
this is a bit of a tangent. So Rhonda Fleming, she was born in Utah. She was actually in Hollywood. She was nicknamed the Queen of Technicolor because she was photographed so well in that medium. She was in quite a few movies, and she was married a lot of times as well. Not to knock somebody that gets married a lot, but she was married 6 times throughout her life. She actually is still alive to this day, though. She's 96 years old and resides in California.
Huh. Is that the coincidence that the place was called Showstar Cinema 6 and she was married 6 times?
There you go. That's why they did the 6. But at this point, so Ted was her 5th husband. So the 6 hadn't come along because Ted passed away in 2001. But I think kind of cool about Rhonda is she was married to someone that was likely related to me, Dr. Lewis Morrill, and they were married in Kanab. So that was her
Oh,
second husband.
which is
So
also interesting because Mann is the maiden name of my wife. So I married a man. So there's maybe a good chance that my wife is related to Ted. And then you're possibly related to Rhonda.
so if we
So
look
where's
at
our
it,
royalties? That's what I'm asking. Where's our
what?
money?
Yeah, so you and I threw out this weird interconnectedness. We're actually probably related by marriage. Anyway, enough about Rhonda. So the theater officially opened the day after on October 3rd to the public, and it opened with the movies Coast to Coast, Lady and the Tramp, Airplane, and some other unnamed movie that starred George Burns. So you could do the math of that time and figure out what that George Burns movie was.
There you go. But that's, I mean, two pretty iconic films, Lady and the Tramp, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Airplane.
Airplane. I don't know
So
about Coast to Coast, but I know the other two movies.
I put my phone on airplane mode once, and it kept calling me Shirley.
Oh, gosh. That's so dumb. All right. So eventually, the name changed to Plaza 5400, and shortly after it was closed in August 24th of 2000 because of Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they didn't want to invest the money into this and a couple other locations that just didn't meet the higher standards of the time. Consolidated Theaters reopened it as to what I knew it growing up as Showcase Cinemas, and they opened in 2001, April of 2001, and that's when it became the Dollar Theater.
The Dollar Theater. Yeah, and that's, well, one movie I saw there, because I grew up on the East Bench, so I didn't watch movies over here a lot, but for some reason, our family went and saw Home Alone at that theater. So that's probably around 1990. So that's probably the first time I went there, but moving out to the west side, it was always a Dollar Theater for the longest time. So that's what I always kind of think of it as well, as the Dollar Theater or Dollar House, right?
At least, yeah, and it was the one closest in this area. I knew about the one in Sandy as well. That was a Dollar Theater, but if I was ever going to a Dollar Theater, it was this one. And looking back, so at least I would say between 2001 and 2011, it was the Dollar Theater through that time. And so I don't know if I ever went to a movie after that. So anytime I did go to a movie, it was within that time frame. And I remember when I started seeing that they had new movies in it, but never got around to visiting. So it's been a long time since I had actually gone there.
Oh, really? So you didn't see any of the new run movies there when they changed it over or back into a first run movie theater?
I feel like while I noticed that the movies were new, and we'd always think about going, like my wife and I a couple times toyed with the idea of going see a movie there, but it was always conflicting as when the movie times were, and it just was kind of hard to get around and go there.
Gotcha. Yeah, we loved it. I mean, it wasn't the high end, stadium seating type theater,
Right.
but it was super cheap. So, have you ever been to a movie and it was just okay, but then you're kind of upset that you spent $8-9 watching it?
Yeah, good point.
So that was kind of like the place to go if you were unsure about the movie being good. Because if you're only spending $3-4, you're not going to be as upset if the movie isn't as good as you thought it would be. And like I said, it was a great place to go to take the kids, because the kids don't, when they're young, don't care about the quality. It's more about just watching the movie. And one cool thing I think they did towards the end of their days was for their concessions. I can't remember how much it was. It was around $15. You could get a popcorn, but it was like unlimited refills.
Oh, nice.
So we would go there sometimes with the nieces and my nieces and nephews, and so my kids' cousins, right? And just we'd all pitch in and buy the $15 popcorn bucket and eat a lot of popcorn while we watched the movie theater. So it was a good deal. So yeah, good place to go if you're just not sure about the movie, but you want to see the movie anyways, and you don't want to spend $9-10 on a movie. It was good for that.
Well, so going back, the name officially changed in 2011, and that's when they started getting those new movies. And then they finally shuttered their doors on September 9th of 2016. And I'll read you what they posted on their Facebook. Fun fact, I liked the page today, so it still exists on Facebook if you want to go and like them.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they said Showstar Cinema 6 thanks you for your patronage over the last 16 years. The theater has permanently closed as of September 5th. We are auctioning everything in the building on September 15th at 10 a.m. Cleared the whole place out, and that was that.
The end of the theater, which is
So,
crazy to think that it's been almost 4 years. Feels like it was just a couple years ago they were up and running. But
so just for context, the movies that were playing close to closing, probably the last one was on July 28th. Jason Bourne movie was playing. Finding Dory, Close Behind, Civil War. It's been closed a good while.
yeah, almost 4 years. That's a long time, but time flies.
I do have good memories of it, though. I saw my dog Skip there. I remember. My mom cried.
My very first movie I ever cried in was a dog movie, but it was over at the Cottonwood Mall, and it was called Turner and Hooch. Hooch?
Turner and Hooch.
Hooch? That was it. Hooch? That is with Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah, I've never seen that one.
No, it's a tearjerker. Don't watch it.
I also saw Alice in Wonderland there.
Yeah.
I remember going with my cousins, and I was more interested in the arcade games than the actual movie. They always had fun arcade games there.
Well, they still had some arcade games there till they closed, if I remember correctly.
Oh, we could have went and bought some of them during the auction.
Ah, nerds. We missed our opportunity.
I also kind of had my first date at this movie theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you want to get technical, I probably had been on dates before, but when I turned 16 and you're finally allowed to go on dates for some people, that's where my first date was. And I was looking back to that time, what was playing, because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was probably High School Musical 3 that I saw.
Yes.
So can you really have a better first date than that?
No, you cannot.
Do you have any other good memories of the place?
No, just like I said, Home Alone was the first movie that I saw there. So that was Home Alone, 1990? So I was about 10 years old. I remember going, it's located right next to the strip mall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Leatherby's is right there. So remember we went to Leatherby's after Home Alone. My wife and I liked the restaurant in front called Francesco's.
Mm-hmm.
We should do a episode just on that place someday. But
that's gonna be a heated episode if we're gonna do that.
Yeah, well, we got to do it then. Controversial.
A very controversial episode.
But going there to Francesco's for inexpensive dinner and then watch a movie after or before after, vice versa. But like I said, we saw a lot. I didn't go there a lot when it was the Dollar Theater, but when they started doing the new runs for the $3, it was fun to go down there and just see a movie for cheap. And you know how I love a good deal.
Oh, do you ever?
So
what I loved about the place was the whole facade. It kind of had that still old school theater vibe to it, with the box office and the posters that they'd have, the lights. It's different than what you see now, because it seemed more low budgety, and to that point it was. But the whole theater and its layout has that old school feel, with kind of the velvety carpets and just the smaller scale.
right.
So it was cool for that reason.
When you're saying old school, it's basically my childhood. So it reminds me of movie theaters from my childhood. But thanks for making me feel old.
All right. Well, it was old school to me, and to you, it was just what you grew up with.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's the sad thing is, I went back on something we've used before in past episodes, but the Wayback Machine, to look at their website from years past, and they had some really great tips on how you could do some fundraising there. So Could have been a really great way for us to get our podcast out there for the moviegoers. So, I mean, they still got some tips that they laid out, so we can use some of the tips, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, we can't advertise there anymore.
No, it'd be kind of hard. And they also used to do birthday parties and stuff there too, right? You could rent out the theater for fairly cheap.
Yeah, like that one guy's review talking about how it was great for parties. They'd let you show your own movie in there, and they did a lot of cool stuff for the kids. Not too bad.
Yeah. We missed our chance. I'm sure you can still rent movie theaters nowadays, but I'm sure the prices are a little bit different than what you could have got here.
Yeah, definitely. So in closing, I got a lot of this information from utahtheaters.info, which they had quite an extensive write-up on this place. There was this man that he was a movie critic, and toward the theater as it was closing, and gave his thoughts on it. He said, nobody would confuse the Showstar Cinema 6 with the movie palaces of Hollywood's golden age. The Showstar is a flat building in a strip mall just off Redwood Road. The glass front with large lighted boxes holding posters runs parallel to a long concession counter. At the end of that counter, one takes a right into a dark red hallway lit with 6 red LED reader boards, each marking the door to one of the building's auditoriums. The auditoriums were pleasant enough, with gently ramped aisles and a gradual slope. The seats had plastic molded backs with a not thick enough layer of fabric-covered foam. Looking out the lobby windows, one can't see the main reason the Showstar Cinema 6 is doomed. About a block away across 5400 South, a new multiplex is being built, the first location in Utah for Regal Entertainment Group. Your favorite place.
There you go.
The new Regal Cinemas will be big and shiny, a place where kids going to their first movies will make lifelong memories. Just remember, though, that there were some suburban Utah kids who had their first movie experience in that flat box in the strip mall. For those kids, the Showstar or Man 6 or Plaza 5400 or Showcase will always be their movie house.
So I wonder, because my kids obviously have been to both, so I wonder which one they will relate to more when they get older. I'm going to guess the Regal Theater.
Because you go there so much more now.
Yeah, but I'm sure they'll remember the Dollar Theater or the Showstar. It wasn't a Dollar Theater to them, but
yeah, I always hold a special place in my heart for the Dollar Theater.
amen.
Well, I think we've covered just about all we can for this location, but let us know what other places in this 5400 and Redwood area you'd like us to cover, because there are a lot of them, past and present.
Yeah, that whole area over the last 10 years has completely changed. So it's not what it once was.
It's a treasure trove.
I can see that. Yeah, and then let us know your experience of going to this movie theater if you ever had the chance to go. If you had a chance to go back in the day when it was the Mann Theater or the Dollar Theater, or most recently Showstar Cinema 6.
And what movie theater are you going to go to when movie theaters open back up?
Which hopefully is the end of July. I think things will hopefully start opening back up again.
But until then, we're just going to have to watch movies in your front yard, Nate.
In my front yard, yeah. We, for the 4th of July, went outside, watched fireworks, and set up a movie screen in our front yard. So might have to do that again.
But until then, tune into our podcast for all your entertainment purposes.
We will keep you entertained till then.
That we will. Thanks for listening.
See you next week.